Hello, it's Graham Cofe with another My Music, sponsored by Nextstand. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to my friend here, Kat. But first, this. I need to get going, Mel. See you later. Oh, it's lovely to get to the end of the week. I don't know what everybody else has been doing this week. It's been really hard work. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just when you get to this point, sort of start to midsummer. I don't know what it is, but it just feels like everything's a little bit slow. How's your week been, Kat?
It's been all right. We have a heat wave here in Vancouver, so I feel like doing nothing, but I have like a million things I need to do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can completely concur. It's actually been a little bit grey and overcast in the last week or so. But as of today, the sun has scorchingly come back out again here in Somerset. And you just suddenly go,
yeah, exactly.
Brain doesn't want to engage. But anyway, we're here to not talk about the sun or the weather or anything like that. We're here to talk about music. Kat, what started music for you?
Oh my God, I guess it depends on when I want to start this story, because like music has been in my life my entire life. Both of my grandfathers were very musically inclined. My brother was a radio DJ for a long time. My sister-in-law's in radio. It was always kind of in the back of my head that this was what I wanted to do with my life. But essentially I tried it when I was like 19, realized that I was 19 and just not at all prepared for what it was going to entail. Took a break for like 20 years. And then at the beginning of the pandemic was like, you know what, if not now, when? I had a full-time job going into the pandemic. By the end of 2020, I no longer had that job. And it became, let's just do this. Let's do it. I've always wanted this. We're going to go for it.
Right. So you made that conscious decision during the pandemic to change it, which a lot of people did. Yeah. I mean, this pandemic, it was, an absolute tragedy on so many fronts, but a lot of us need to look at it and go, well, but we all stood still for a minute. The world stood still. We reflected, we thought, hang on a minute, what are we doing all of this for? And was that was a moment for you, was it, where you just thought,
absolutely. Yeah, I was unhappy in my job before that. It wasn't a bad job. It just wasn't for me, right? It was a bad fit. And I thought about quitting for about 4 years. And just, I was comfortable. The job was fine. I was making enough money. Like things were fine, right? And then the pandemic hit and suddenly it was like, I was at home all the time, like all of us were. And I realized that like anxiety symptoms that I've been having had been far reduced and I had all this time. And it was like, I went back to music and it was like something kind of lit. It was this change of like, oh my God, I have missed this. And why haven't I been doing this the whole time? Right.
Yeah. I mean, even here, I gave up a job just before the pandemic. Great timing.
Right.
And I literally just started something new, but that came to a sudden crush. It came crashing down with the pandemic. And if I've got one regret, it's that I didn't just enjoy some of the time a little bit more, because part of me was a little bit anxious that I've got I've got to feed the family and
of course
got to make money, and maybe I should be doing something and starting something up and whatever. But there were times that we just had extra time, and all of us in the family, did go back to some things that we put to sleep for ages. And, I got my guitar out, which I hadn't really spent a lot of time playing for a long time. My son learned how to play guitar.
Nice.
In the pandemic, he played a little bit of trumpet before that, but hadn't played anything else. So suddenly there was this time to enjoy and find these other things again. And for me, one of the things that came out of it when I did start again was this, because I thought, do you know what? I've heard so many interviews with bands and artists, etc., on radio over that period, you know, and it was stuff like, so what's your favorite ice cream?
The important stuff, you mean?
Oh, yeah. Or so if you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be?
Right, yeah.
And I was thinking, hang on a minute. You know, I'd kind of lived a life, Kat, of within music, even though a lot of my work over the years has been nothing to do with music. I've always been around music. I was in a band from 14.
Nice.
And, you know, at 21, I was in a signed band, and I was doing other stuff as well. I was recording people like Tori Amos, and I was, you know, I was doing sort of sound at gigs for people, and I was working on radio, and I was interviewing bands.
Yeah.
And kind of over the years, all of that had drifted off, and I suddenly thought, well, do you know what? I'm going to start a social media business, and then I'm going to make part of that. I am going to interview artists again.
Nice.
Right. But let's make it from that perspective of I've lived a little bit of that, and let's talk to them from a kind of respectful point of view of, you know, let's reminisce about, you know, what that was like, and you know, get people to understand what it is to be a musician a little bit as well, because I guess, you know, everybody that's not a musician and hears people putting out material has a little bit of rose tinted glasses about that.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I did going in. I think I had this idea that like I would just make some music and I would just sign to a label and everything would be great. And it's like I've done those things, but like I'm still working really hard. I still have like another part-time job to support what I'm doing. It's not like an overnight success. If anything, signing with the label just meant that there's more things that I have to do, not less. So yeah, there's definitely a steep learning curve. And now, like when I was 19, the whole thing of like social media and being on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram and all of these things all the time was just not a thing, right? It's like you wrote music, you played at festivals or whatever, right? But now it's like there's so much pressure to be so present all the time. And I think we don't talk a lot about the kind of mental health aspect of that and the emotional labor that goes into just being there all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's why the business that I started is called A Better Way of Life. And it's why we help people through that, and we help people do it, because actually it's not for everybody. Yeah. You know, just because, and again, you know, just because you might be on the surface extrovert enough to stand up on the stage and sing songs in front of people, that kind of extrovert nature might not necessarily translate to you want to put your life on social media on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And talk to a whole load of people that you just really don't want to talk to. Yeah. You know, and it's not because you want to be unfriendly to people that want to be fans or anything. It's just, that's not you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and there's so much pressure now to like be authentic. So people want to see like who you are as a person, which means like just promoting your music doesn't cut it anymore, right? You have to be okay with showing certain aspects of yourself. And for me, that was a huge learning curve, because when I started, I was incredibly paranoid about putting anything personal on the internet, because being female on the internet is kind of dangerous just to begin with. You're opening yourself up to a whole lot of weird shit. So you have to take that into account as far as what you actually share with people. And then also from a perspective of like, what is interesting about me? You know, besides the fact that like, oh, I make music that some people like, are there things about me as a human that are actually interesting, and trying to have that like third perspective without judging yourself, you know, and being like, is the fact that I like cats interesting, or is that, I don't know.
Yeah. And again, that's why we do a lot of stuff like this with people, because, you know, and I, not from a musician, but another client during the week, they said, oh, but someone else in my sector said, you really need to be, showing yourself up more on social media. And I turned around to them and said, yeah, but you're not them. They're a very extrovert person. They're the kind of person that would always be snapping themselves at anything as a selfie or whatever. You're not that. You're a private person, so yeah, we can put you in front of people, but let's do it in a way that you feel comfortable with it and that you've got some control in it, because otherwise you're going to fall over. And it's that's dangerous ground. So listen, when you were young, what were you listening to?
Oh my gosh. So when I was quite young, like 18, 19, it was the 90s, and I was a big alternative rock fan. So I was just actually talking with the label people about how I'm going to see Garbage this weekend, and I am so excited.
Shirley.
I love Shirley. She is the reason I have red hair. I have been obsessed with Shirley since I was 14. And there was this whole thing because anyone who lived through the 90s knows that there was kind of an idea of what women should be. And then alternative rock came around, people like Shirley Manson, and they offered this different perspective of you can be sad, you can be angry about things, you can be unfeminine, and it is still awesome. And for me, that was groundbreaking, because I had never felt like I fit any of the kind of female tropes. So having Shirley come into my, kind of world and my universe with this different perspective, it was opened all of the doors for me. And that was kind of when I started thinking about writing my own music and writing sad girl songs and this kind of stuff. But the production, the production of Butch Vig was always really inspirational to me, because they took a rock band and then added all of this other stuff that just made it so interesting and so fascinating. And it is something that I still do now.
Oh, absolutely. There was so much electronica in there as well. It was a great, and remember, we'd come out of a period of, those people had grown up in the 80s. So we'd grown up with, Nick Kershaw and Howard Jones, and a lot of, sort of pop songs, even early Depeche Mode, that were all centered around the electronic synths, sounds and whatever, synths, etc. And until synths became overboard, because it just, and that's literally what happened with synth music.
Totally,
it just went right up its own backside, to be honest. I mean, it just literally, at first it started clever, and it was let's put a few sounds in there, and then it suddenly became let's get every synth sound possible in there, until it's but someone like Butch just brilliantly sort of took the staple rock sound again and went, let's put these stabs in there, or these little sounds in there that just make it interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah Brilliant. Who else apart from Garbage, Shirley, anybody else that was on the scene that you were?
Yeah, I mean, I was a big Smashing Pumpkins fan. I mean, they were everywhere, so that was a big thing. Tea Party,
big songs,
huge songs, and honestly, I'm still guilty of that now too. You can see my influences, because I'm just cram all the stuff into the songs, and I'm the happiest. But the over dramatics of Billy Corgan, I was all for that. He was just he wasn't just a little bit sad or a little bit angsty. It was everything was ending.
He was completely melancholy. It was
infinite sadness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I love the dramatics of their songs as well. I love the massive great builds, and then nothing.
Yeah. Those silent moments, right?
Absolutely. And the use of, again, a lot of crossover in the sound as well, because there's a lot of staple kind of rock elements to that, but then there would be strings, or there would be just these little twinkles in the background that would just make it interesting to come back and listen to. Oh no, that's really, really interesting. Brilliant. Was there a guilty pleasure along the way? Was there anyone that you listened to that someone would be surprised about?
Probably. I mean, I had an Aqua phase. I don't know if you remember Barbie Girl.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. That bubblegum pop. it
they did it
definitely
with
had a
some
moment.
sass, right?
It did, yeah. Yeah, it was like Brand Van 3000, it was the same thing,
Yeah.
where it was, like, kinda cheeky, you know, and I think that the cheeky part of me enjoyed that.
I think, so you mentioned, Barbie Girl. I just think
Yeah.
there was moments, especially in the video of that, which you just thought, "This is wrong."
Yeah,
And that is, you
definitely.
know, but and that's the funny thing, isn't it? It became kind of it became one of those songs that has been stuck on sort of kids' pop albums
Hmm.
since, and you think, actually, that's not a kid's song.
No,
If
no.
you'd actually listened to what that song was
Yep,
going on about, and you watch that video in particular,
totally.
that's definitely not a kid's
Yeah.
song. But it's, you know, it always surprises me that those things translate like that. I mean, I watched one of my kids who's only 6, was watching
Mm.
TV the other day, and an advert came up for kids pop. Do you
Oh
remember
god. Oh my god.
they do these? Yeah, they're still making them. These
Yeah,
albums where kids sing pop songs.
it's terrible, yeah.
Dreadful,
Yeah.
absolutely dreadful. And one of the first songs that they were singing was that A B C D, and it's just like,
Oh,
what?
they like ABCDFU or whatever?
Yeah,
Oh my god, that's so
what?
funny. That's so
How is
funny.
that? How, you know?
Not a kid song.
That is not a
Yeah,
kid song. All right,
yeah,
that's a very adult song with a very adult
absolutely.
message. You know, but I love the fact that people try and make these things saccharine so that you know
Yeah,
everybody can absorb it.
absolutely.
You see a keyboard there. Is keyboard your primary instrument for writing, or
It's kind of become that way. Yeah. I do play guitar and I wrote a lot of songs on guitar when I first got back into this, but then I always found they sounded too kind of folky, which is fine. It's just not really my kind of favorite. So when I started producing my own music, I now use MIDI instruments for most of the stuff. And I usually start with some kind of piano or key or like something to kind of ground it. So it's kind of become my main staple.
yeah? Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about your record label for a
Mm.
minute. How did you find them?
On the internet. Essentially, a friend of mine who's a UK artist, Thomas Ragsdale, I was working with him mastering some of my own stuff before I was signed. And I said, like, I have all this demo material. I really love it, but I don't know who to send it to. I asked him if he had any recommendations, and Analog Trash was one of the people that he recommended. So I looked into them. I really liked the ethos that they had on their website, talking about inclusivity and supporting female artists. And that was really important to me. When I was looking at labels, so many of them had just like acres of the same band. And it was always, especially like here in Canada, there's a lot of like indie rock acts of like 4 guys with like long hair and a beard. And there was just so much of that. And I was like, well, how do I fit into this? I'm here making my dark electronic vibey stuff, and all Canadian labels are looking for like indie rock acts, right?
There you go. I was looking around while you were talking because here we go. For anyone that doesn't know, there we go. There's the key ring.
Oh, nice.
There we go. Little plug there. Analog Trash.
Awesome.
Great band. And they actually sent me an email this morning.
Nice.
About you because you've literally just released something. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so Devil's Curse actually just came out this morning. I know, so exciting. It is my second release with Analog Trash. So the first one was Circus of the Living, which did fairly well considering a lot of things. Devil's Curse is the follow-up to it. It's more of like a kind of dark ballad, I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
It talks a lot about kind of the obsessive nature of love, the kind of complex feelings of feeling like encompassed by those initial flourishes of love, or lust, whichever way you want to go. It has kind of like vampire kind of aesthetic to it. I was watching Only Lovers Left Alive a lot, and Lost Highway. So those kinds of influences are definitely in there.
But it's got, just so people know, when you say it's a ballad, it's got pace. It's
It
not. This is no Jennifer Rush, Power of Love.
Oh god,
no. Go and put your head down the toilet thing.
Yeah.
This is. It's got pace and it's pulsing, and it carries you through it. It's just what you're saying is that it's got in terms of sentiment and everything, it's a ballad.
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, most things that I write have some kind of like synth or bass element that kind of drives through the whole thing. I like things to have a bit of motion and a bit of movement to them.
Yeah. Well, otherwise we all get bored, don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, let's face it, in this day and age where everybody has got a limited, span in terms of attention.
Totally.
So much so that I couldn't even remember what I was going to say then for a second. It was, but it's no. I mean, it works. It keeps your interest throughout. And I love your voice on this as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did you ever have vocal lessons? Were you?
Yeah, I've been in choirs most of my life, and then I did take some vocal lessons over the last couple of years with a friend of mine who's a really good teacher, and then also I'm in a local choir with Dawn Pemberton, who's a kind of well-known Canadian jazz singer. Yeah, she's amazing. So she's also helped me kind of hone in on my sound and my style and all that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we might get a bit of jazz from you at some point,
Jazz is actually kind of like my second love. Yeah. So I've done some jazz singing previously, and I think that comes into what I'm doing now. Is there's a bit of that kind of sultry, smoky jazz club thing.
You did it so well just there with your voice.
Yeah, exactly. It's in there for sure.
Yeah. No, fantastic. What sort of do you listen to jazz yourself? Is there a jazz influence for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the classics, like Ella Fitzgerald will never get old for me, Nina Simone. Like there's just I had a thing for Doris Day for a while. It's not really jazz, but that kind of classic like the Torch song era. I definitely have a soft spot for that. The emotion and the tone that comes with that, it's always a little bit deeper, a little bit darker, and that's definitely where I like to sit.
And also though, in the more sort of freeform kind of alternative jazz side of things, there's some really cool young jazz artists out there at the moment making some really interesting music. I mean, have you listened to people like Nuba Garcia at all, or no?
No, I haven't had a chance, honestly, to get kind of into that. I've kind of gone with the classics, but
there you go. Check that one out. She's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So in terms of where you want to go next with your music, what's the ambition for Kat Bryan?
Oh, I mean, like sky's the limit, honestly, for me. Like I want all the things. Being more realistic, I mean, there's this release. There will be another single coming out in September, and then the album in October. We're kind of aiming for around Halloween time, just because that kind of fits my personal aesthetic. Yeah, everything's a little bit dark, a little bit kind of haunted. That's kind of my vibe. So Halloween kind of made sense. So I'm working towards that, and then I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, opportunities seem to be just kind of presenting themselves. So I'm open to whatever kind of finds me along the way.
No, that's good. Well, now listen, if the album's coming out around the October time, I want to book that date now. So when the album's ready, I want you to come back and we will do the album, and maybe even like listen to, if we can get permission, play some little spot teasers of that. And talk about that, and that would be absolutely fantastic. So one question that I ask everybody that comes through the hallowed doors of my music is, if you could work with somebody alive or dead, who would that be?
There's a couple of different people, but I think Niels Fromm is actually top of my list.
Right.
I've seen him perform a number of times, and he's just amazing. And like, I don't even know what we would do, like whether he would want to use vocals, whether I could just like add some piano to his 17 other pianos. But I just think he's such a creative genius that it would just be amazing to be in a studio with him.
That's lovely. I mean, it's great. It's great and actually it's nice that you've got someone there that's not necessarily known by everybody in the world.
But everybody should know.
Yeah. Where did you first hear him?
It was actually my partner when we first met like 8 years ago. he's an electronic artist as well, and he introduced me to Niels Fromm just because he knew that I liked, piano music and classical music and had kind of these diverse tastes. I was into Philip Glass at the time.
Right.
So he thought, well, if you like Philip Glass, then you'll probably like this guy. And he sent me, I think it was the video for, I think it was Said and Done, which is just such an incredible song because it's all based around this one note that he hits the entire 9-minute song and then just builds around it. But this one note just stays the entire time. It takes you on this journey, this emotional trip. It feels like a breakup, and it's like the beginning and then the breakup and then the aftermath. And it was just I sat there at the end of it just oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've got to go and check that out.
Absolutely.
I'm writing it down. It's going to happen. But I love music that does that as well. I love music that builds around one idea and just keeps repeating it, and until you actually, sometimes that note or that sound kind of disappears, and you have to keep going. You have to listen for it because there's so much else going on.
Exactly.
But it's there. Another great example. I'm going to give you an example of that now. Another great example of that is, have you ever heard of Penguin Cafe Orchestra?
I haven't.
Whoa!
It sounds amazing.
Okay, you check out Penguin Cafe Orchestra, and in particular a piece of music. So if you like Philip Glass, you'll probably like this.
Okay.
A piece of music called Telephone and a Rubber Band.
Okay.
And it starts off with kind of a telephone exchange sound and a rubber band.
Interesting.
And that stays there throughout the whole song as different piano and violin and everything else comes in around it. And you
amazing.
You keep going, it's there, isn't it? It's still there because you want it to be there because it's called Telephone and a Rubber Band. But you have to focus, and you have to you really, really try and latch onto it, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful piece as well.
Love it. It definitely sounds like up my alley.
There you go. Kat, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you today.
Yeah, you too.
Don't forget, everybody, Kat's music is available for download, and actually you can pay money for it as well.
Please do.
Please do, because that's really important. And Analog Trash would like me to say, do support Kat Bryan and buy all of her music. And when she produces a t-shirt as well, buy that and wear it. We do this on every show because it's really important.
It is very important. Musicians make no money, so please support us.
If you want to find Kat's latest single and her last one as well, and download those, Kat, where do people go?
You can go to Analog Trash's website. That's probably the easiest spot. There are links to Bandcamp, to all the streaming platforms. Exactly. Analog Trash. And check out their other artists because they have some really incredible artists on that label.
Do you know what? You just did a little jingle for them there. No. Analog Trash.
If they want me to write the jingle, I am totally happy to do that.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
It would be,
you arrive on their website and it'd be like, dum, 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 Analog Trash.
It would be dark and it would be haunted and it would be full of synths. It'll be great.
Yeah, brilliant. It's been a pleasure meeting you today. Good luck with the career. Do come back in October and talk to us about the album. Until then, everybody, this has been Kat Bryan. This is my music. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye, Graham.